Welcome to Pilates with Nicole, Pilates for COVID recovery and also just connecting with your breath. This is about a half-hour class. And today you will need, if it's tough for you to sit up tall, you might want to grab something to sit on or even a chair if that's the most comfortable way for you to sit up without having to feel kind of tight. And then if you happen to have a TheraBand, you want a nice long one, but if you don't, grab a pair of leggings, either yours or somebody who lives with you. And if you don't have that, maybe pause and grab look for a scarf, anything that has or a long pair of, anything with a little bit of give. If you don't have anything, yeah, like a scarf or something will do. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. You just want it to be long enough. I'm just going to change this up a little bit. There we go. So we'll start seated today. So I'm going to sit on my little meditation pillow because that helps me in my tight hips. And you can't see my forehead, and that doesn't matter. So sitting comfortably. Sometimes this might help if you're also a person who doesn't like to sit crisscross applesauce. Either way is fine, because we're just going to start with a really tall spine. It's going to bug me. And start to bring some attention to your breath. I'm not going to edit this video, so you just have to deal with all of that. Okay, so you're sitting, and the goal is to find your sit bones, sit up nice and tall without kind of overdoing it, just a gentle lift of the spine. And first things first, before you grab this thing, you're going to take your hands to your ribs and start to breathe. Sometimes when we pick our hands up, our shoulders get scrunched, so let them drop. You can have your elbows out, do whatever you got to do so that the shoulders don't have to be working really hard. And start to breathe. Or rather, I should say, start to bring attention to your breath, because you have been breathing for a long time already. So if you feel like your fingertips and your belly is doing all of the moving in your breath, I encourage you to feel your breath move into the heels of your hands, so that you start to feel that rib cage expanding this way. If you're a person whose shoulders like to creep up, I encourage you to keep checking in, just kind of circling back and making sure that they haven't crept up on an inhale. You want that breath to go into the lungs and down into your pelvis. So if it's hard to take big breaths and you start to feel yourself getting tight, and trying to get more breath in, let it go. We're not doing anything. You don't need to breathe giant breaths. I think of it like taking a long, slow sip of water. You don't need to gulp. So taking your arms down by your side, we're going to stretch the sides out a little bit before we add the band. So if you're sitting like this, you should be able to do it anyway. You should be able to do it, but you'll reach your arms out to the side. Take one hand down. And then you can bend that arm a little bit as you stretch. Try not to lift your whole pelvis up. Try to keep your hips heavy and then push up. And if you're tight, you may be reaching just to here. If you're really bendy and you can go down easily, I encourage you to keep the shoulder down and try to keep a little activation in here. Don't totally collapse into your sides. You want to keep some length in both sides of your body. Ooh, and push up. You can do this slower. And in general, anything I do, you can do at whatever pace you want to do. If I'm saying inhale and you're exhaling, no big deal. Ooh, listen to your body, what you need. However you're sitting, if you're in a chair, you might just kind of keep your hands on your legs. But if you're on the floor, you're going to walk your hands forward into a stretch here. And I encourage you now to think about your breath moving into your back, right? So we opened up the ribs. Think of your breath moving. I'm going to come to the side here so you can take a peek if you want, but I'm going to try to let my back lift with air. Let my belly kind of be smushed into my legs or into even my pillow I was sitting on. And whoo. And check in on that. If you're tight, it might feel like a stretch. One more. Can you feel that breath going even into your lower back? Whew. And then help yourself up. So whichever way you're sitting, again, you're tall, you're going to take this TheraBand or this pair of leggings and you're going to wrap it around your rib cage. Right about, it's like if my sternum ends or starts here, it's like right about there. It's the widest part of my rib cage. I crossed it. I'm sorry, this is like not contrasting at all, but basically I want a little bit of tug on this band. I want to feel it pretty snug around my ribs. So now on an inhale, you're gonna, oh brother, you're going to try to expand into your band. And exhale, you're gonna try to pull your band tighter to encourage your ribs to close. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. So you might see that on me, right? That rib cage expanding, shoulders are staying down, and then exhale. Couple of more breaths here. If you're getting lightheaded, take a moment, take a regular old breath, and then you can hop back in. And then take a moment and just hopefully you felt a little bit of that squeezing together of the rib cage, and that starts to wake up the upper abdominals here, the upper transverse, your curl up muscles, which we're about to do when we get on your back. So just that breath movement is really important to get the most out of your lungs, get the most out of your breath capacity, and also to allow you to keep your belly a little engaged while still being able to breathe and exercise, right? If you're only belly breathing and everything is tight, it's going to be hard to engage your core and take a nice big inhale, right? So lay down on your back. You can get rid of this pillow or whatever you were sitting on if you were. And we're going to try to translate some of what we did seated onto the mat. So you can rest your hands on your ribs if that was helpful, but start by inhaling, feeling perhaps part of your back press into the mat. Exhale. Try to close those ribs like you did with your band. Inhale. And exhale. You feel those ribs coming towards each other. I hope you do. If you still don't, help yourself with your hands. You can push your ribs a little together, encourage those muscles to tighten right in between. Okay, that's your curl up, okay? That's what you need to lift your head, neck, and shoulders up. So take your hands behind your head. Your head is going to gently press into your hands. Your hands are pressing back into your head, so that's already happening. And then on an exhale, you close your ribs, and that just lifts you up. Oof, inhale, lower. Exhale, curl up. If you're doing the opposite breath, no big deal. Can you still find your abdominals though, even as you inhale? Can you close those ribs? It's a little harder, honestly. And you can play with different kinds of breathing. Like sometimes puckering your lips and blowing like you're blowing out a candle is helpful to engage those abdominals. But sometimes it's hard to fully engage the ribs and it's just the puckering might be a little tightening. You might try on the next exhale, like a kind of wide mouthed. Which do you prefer? Today I'm preferring the wide mouthed. Couple of more. And rest. All right, so we're gonna work on the 100 today. You're gonna grab that band or scarf, whatever you're using. You can fold it in half if it's like really long, because you are going to hold it up above your shoulders with your hands just a little wider than your shoulders probably, so that you don't feel like your shoulders are close to one another. You want them to be able to be wide on the mat. Whatever you're holding, give it the slightest tug apart as a way to put the back of your shoulders more onto the mat. So I'm engaging my back here by pulling apart the band. So on an exhale, pull the band down towards your thighs. On the inhale, lift the band back up. Maybe to your shoulders, maybe a little further back. Exhale. Inhale. Can you feel your back expand with breath while you're using your muscles here? Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Notice you might feel wobbly and kind of weird in your shoulders. Can you keep your back heavy and your shoulders working together, evenly reaching back? Ooh, and down. Reach up. Exhale. So you have some options. You could stay working like that. You can bring your legs to tabletop. Inhale. Now your abs have to work a little harder to keep your back flat on the mat. Exhale. Maybe you get all the way to your knees and pull the band down onto your knees. Inhale. Exhale. If you're pulling, the shoulders are staying wide. They're not popping up off the mat. Inhale. Can you keep your belly a little flat as you inhale? Exhale. Scoop the belly. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Pull your knees into your chest. And then take this band or strap, whatever you've got, and just place your right foot in the middle of it and lower your left leg long. If this feels, whoa, so tight, bend the knee, put your foot flat, okay? But either way, your left foot, the one that's on the ground, is going to be flexed. Your right leg is going to be slightly pointed depending on what you're using with your strap here, but you're going to start to draw some circles on the ceiling with your right leg. Now, if you've got the TheraBand or a pair of leggings, you can try to keep your hands in place and stretch those leggings or TheraBand out. If your strap is a thing that doesn't stretch, you might be moving your arms with your leg. Either way, you've got two more, unless you're going slower than me, which is fine. Try to keep your hips still. So the hips are not rocking with the leg here. This is where you start to practice those abdominals, right? Breathing while keeping your abs in. Let's reverse the direction of the circles. Your circles also might be smaller, right? Maybe if you're tight in your hamstring, they're down here. Maybe if you're got a little towel, they're like this, right? Either way, we're massaging the hip socket. You've got a long thing though. You can try for a bigger one, as long as you're keeping the belly engaged. Hold here, wherever your leg is, right? You want it to be as straight as possible. It might need to be down here. Shoulders are down. Can you point and flex your foot? I'll go down here so you can see. Point and flex. Point and flex. It's actually a little harder down here, to be honest. Gotta work that quad a couple times, work that calf and ankle, and then you can bend it in and switch sides. Stretch that other leg long, or it's bent if it's too tight, right? Make this leg long and start to draw your circles. Your bottom leg is flexed and active because it's actually helping you stabilize as well. This leg is an active participant. It's not just hanging out. It's helping to keep your pelvis. Basically, everything we do on the mat in Pilates is like practice for standing up, for being up in the air. So this is, if you were standing on this leg, the one that's down, and kicking this leg around, you want to have the stability in your hips and your abs to be able to move this without wrenching your back. Let's reverse the circles. Four more. Are you still breathing into the sides of your body, into the back of your body? One more. And then you can keep your leg up here, or if you're tight, you might be down here, but you're going to point and flex your foot. Work the ankle in both directions. 2 and 1, and bring it in. Okay, so enough with this band. Whatever you were using, you're placing your feet flat on the mat, your arms are down by your side. Can you press your triceps and the back of your shoulders a little into the mat? Can you keep your belly engaged so you haven't arched too much off the mat? And then you're gonna lift your hips up into a bridge. And check in with yourself today. How high is your bridge gonna be? And then roll down. And maybe over the course of these next 7 bridges, you'll roll up a little higher each time. Now I have my legs zipped together because I'm working personally on like opening up the sides of my hips here, opening up the hip flexors. It's a great challenge to keep those legs zipped together, especially if you're tight. But if you need to have your feet a little open, just about a fist's distance, this makes it usually quite a bit more accessible. The main thing though is to notice, like, you don't want your feet wider than your knees because you're putting strain on your knees and your hips. And you also don't want your knees to open because again, you're tightening the TFL, these hip muscles that get tight here. All right, we should be coming up on 8. And roll it on down. Taking your hands back behind your head. You've got options. We're going to curl up and twist this time, so you can keep your feet flat and just work on your curling up to one corner of the room and then curling up to the other side, right? And this is a great way to get started anyway, because you want to keep your hips still, and this is a good way to check in on that. When I'm curling up, am I kind of tipping? We don't want that. You want your upper body to twist, not your hips. You want to make it harder, you're lifting a leg up, twisting towards it. Hips are still staying stable. Whew. And then if you want to make it extra hard, you're doing your classic crisscross. Whew. Hips are still staying stable, okay? Just because you're moving your legs doesn't mean you're rocking your hips. Oh boy, 2 more. Last time, are you staying curled up through center? And then you can lower down, hug your knees in. If you did any version of those, that is a big win. Circle your knees around in both directions. Okay, so today I want to do some side legs. So that means you're going to roll over onto your side. And if you are a person that needs extra support, you might take that pillow you were using to lay down, but you also don't need it. You could just be like this, right? So let's start with bent knees. And they're kind of at a tabletop. And when you're laying down, you want to make it feel like your spine is really straight and your waist is able to lift a little bit, like you're not just resting your stomach and rolling forward onto the mat. You're super laying right on your side. Top hand can be here. If you want to challenge for balance, it goes back here. Okay, wherever your hand is, you look at your hips. Are they stacked? Mine looks like it's rolling back a little bit. And then you start to lift just the knee up and down. Now that's kind of tricky because sometimes this hip wants to move with the knee, right? So if you're rocking, try to move only as far as you can move without moving this hip bone. You can hold it, touch it. All of a sudden it gets usually a little more complicated. Right? I could go a lot further if I move my hips, but I'm going to only go as far as I can without moving my hips. Hold your knee up. Here's the challenge. You're going to dive the knee down, internal rotation, keep your hip, and then dive the heel down, knee to knee, heel to heel. Your thigh bone is doing this in your hip socket, right? Rotating in and out. Hip socket, not moving, ideally. This may take some time. I'm going a little fast. You might be going slower to figure it out. 2 more. And a last one. And lower it down. If you did half as many as me, that's great. I'm going fast generally so you can kind of look up and always see what I'm doing. This is another optional. So if your neck is getting a little tired, okay? Or if you're having trouble with holding yourself still. Lift your top leg up. We're going to stretch the leg behind you and then bicycle it forward. Now, as you're doing this, trying to keep this still, stabilizing. And this bottom knee too. Mine just popped up there. I lost my connection. It is normal if these feel really hard. Reverse. 2. Can you keep connected in here? Can you keep breathing? 1 more. Woo. And lower down. So I'm going to flip over, but you can also just roll over. It would be easier, a little more efficient. But you're going to lie down on the other side. So make sure you're stacked, right? Take a moment. Each side is different, so it might take an extra minute to get into this position. But you're going to start by lifting your knee up and down. I like to look down at my hip all the time and get that visual feedback because sometimes it feels like my hip is still and it's not exactly. Or I feel like I'm stacked and I'm not exactly. It's normal. None of us are perfectly symmetrical. Oof. Notice, how does this hip feel different than the other? A little bit more open, a little less. Get tired more quickly. So one more thing is sometimes the bottom hip, it feels like it's still working and you're like, oh, why is my bottom hip still doing this? It's because it's stabilizing for you. Pull the abdominals in. And sometimes what helps is pressing your hand into the mat. And when you do that, make sure you're not doing it from here, but you're doing it from your back muscles where we were pulling that band before. And sometimes that helps. That and your core will help to take pressure out of your knee, bottom hip rather. Knee to knee, heel to heel. 3, 4. So that hip is staying still. 5, or at least really, really trying to. 6, 7, and 8. Oh yeah, the side is feeling it. Lower it down. We're going in for bicycles. So I like to lift up and start from back here. because here I want to get really long in the waist, long in the lower back. Don't dump into that lower back. Pull your abs in, point the foot maybe even, and then start to bicycle. And you can make this movement big. Ooh. Open into the furniture. 3. Those exhales. 2. 1. And then reverse. Remember, this is an option if you're having trouble with stabilizing or just if it's uncomfortable on your neck. Kind of changes the feel of the exercise. One more because I lost count. And then you can lower it down. Roll right over onto your back. Cross your right ankle over your left knee. If you're pretty tight in your right hip, we're stretching this back hip here. You might stay here. You might push your knee away and try to keep your hips pretty square. But I think most folks might want to pull the leg in closer for a deeper stretch on that right hip. So I'm pulling my left thigh in, interlacing my hands pretty close. And then if you want an even deeper stretch, you take that right elbow and push it into your knee as you pull the leg closer to you. That push and pull really challenges that stretch. Let's switch sides. So crossing the left ankle over the right. You've got your, this one's so tight, like today I could probably just stay here. But maybe I'll get a little deeper by pulling the right left thigh in as I push my left knee out, right? That opposition. All right. Rock yourself, or you can rock yourself up to seated, or you can roll over and push yourself up, especially if you get a little lightheaded when you're getting up. And we're coming to hands and knees. So we're going to close out with a little cat-cow and a plank. We started with breath, that kind of idea of 360 degrees into the sides, into the back, into the front. And you can think about that here. Go ahead and tuck the toes, just prepping for that plank that's coming up. But first you can round the spine, looking deep into your belly, curling the tailbone under, and then arch your back, looking up. And this is going to look different for everyone. You might be rounder in this mid back than me. I hope you are. And then arch. Shoulders are still gliding down, never shrugging into them. It's just a good practice. And also a good practice is when you're arching, keeping your belly a little engaged. Don't just let it totally flop down. You're going to put a lot of pressure on your back there. Can you keep your belly pulling up even as you arch? You can. It's possible around your spine. All right, so find your long neutral spine. You're also welcome to keep working on your cat-cow, but make sure your knees are not too wide, about 1.5 fist distance. Hug your inner thighs towards each other. You might even imagine you're squeezing a ball between your thighs, and then from there, lift your knees up off the mat, just about 1 inch or 2. Did your spine change shape? If it did, can you try it again? Can you lower and lift up and keep your spine shape? Lower down, untuck your toes, sit back. If you want to try something a little fun, a little harder, you can take that band, your pair of leggings, take it and wrap it around your back, kind of right where we were breathing before, but hold on to it with your hands. The tighter you hold on to it, so like the more you feel tension right away, the more exciting it is. But from here, hands flat, right? So now I've got this band trying to pull me down. Pull your abs up, push into it, and lift your knees up. It's just a little extra pressure, right? Something you have to fight against. You could also start to breathe into that band again. Feel free to lower your knees and just hold this position. But if you're still in your plank, stay for one more breath. Woo. Lower the knees down. Let go of that band. And you can stay seated and just take a moment to feel that breath filling in all around your body. Thank you for joining me, and let me know, of course, if you have any questions or things. You can do it in the comments, and I'll get that. And thank you. Bye.